Good evening. Today we will be looking at the book of Proverbs, chapter 1 and 2, as well as finishing up the non-canonical Psalms 155 through 160. Let's see if I make sure I have everything where it's supposed to be. So the Proverbs, or the Masal Salaman, the Proverbs of Solomon, are sayings attributed to Solomon the wise, many of them, for wisdom. So let me share this with my page. Good evening. I'm starting a watch party. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, we pray for the end of the coronavirus pandemic, for peace in our families, peace for those who are alone, afraid, angry, or stressed, or sad. We pray for healing for the sick, wisdom for doctors, scientists, and leaders, conversion of souls, that all of us may become saints. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. There are 9 sections of Proverbs, chapter from 1 through the end of chapter 9, a general invitation to acquire wisdom. Chapter 10 through chapter 22, a first collection of Solomon's Proverbs. 22 through 24, a collection of sayings of the wise men. 24 through the end of 24 through 34, another small collection of sayings of the wise men. A collection of Proverbs of Solomon gathered together by the people of Ezekias. 25 through 29, the sayings of Agur, son of Jakeh. That's chapter 30. And then chapter 30, 15 through 33 is numerical sayings. 31, 1 through 9 is the sayings of King Lemuel. And 31, 10 through 31, a portrait of the virtuous wife. So there's these different psalms, different proverbs that are given by different people. So these first are these introductory proverbs, and we'll be reading in the ESV. So I will share chapter 1 with you in the comments. So these are no longer musical, as the Psalms are. They are a collection of sayings. So they will seem a lot of times like very abrupt sayings. Some that you might be familiar with in English. A penny saved is a penny earned, or watch your pennies and your dollars will take care of themselves. Things like this. So the Proverbs of Solomon, that's where we get the title, son of David, king of Israel. So Solomon, in the book, let's look at Solomon asking for wisdom. That's in 1 Kings chapter 3, Solomon's prayer for wisdom. Verse 5, at Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give you. And Solomon said, you have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart toward you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David, my father, although I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. and your servant is in the midst of your people whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil, for who is able to govern this great people? So give your servant therefore an understanding mind, or wisdom. And I'll share this as well. This is from 1 Kings. And so Solomon is considered the wisest man to have ever lived. Now, going back to the Proverbs. So verse 2, this is kind of the first proverb, the first little saying: to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteous justice and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. So how to deal with others, how to be righteous, how to be fair, how to teach others. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance, to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. So sometimes wise people say things that seem like riddles, but when we grow wise ourselves, we too will understand it. So somebody says something like, even a saying that you don't understand personally. Oh, children are such a blessing. So I don't understand how children are a blessing. You have to clean them, you have to follow them, you have to take care of them. And then they have children and they say, oh, wow, children are a blessing. So this idea, coming to understanding things that other people are saying. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance, to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. Now, one of the most famous verses in the Old Testament, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, or the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So let's pull up that verse, Proverbs 1, verse 7. I don't know if you can hear the storm, but there's quite a storm outside. Glad I have a roof. I want to look at this in the Hebrew so that we can look at and understand a little bit. So the fear, yirat, Yahweh, resit, the beginning, da'at, knowledge, hakma, umusar, and instruction, wisdom and instruction, ewelim, fools, bazu, despise. So we have hekmah as wisdom, and then we have da'at as knowledge, and then we have umusar as instruction. So knowledge, da'at, is a knowledge or perception or a skill, or knowledge with moral quality, or knowledge possessed with God, or discernment or understanding. And it comes from yada, or in Syriac yoda, which means knowing or knowledge. The name of the famous Star Wars character Yoda actually comes from the Syriac word for this. And then we have hekmah as wisdom, from chekam, to be wise. So wisdom can be skill in war, wisdom in administration, shrewdness or wisdom, ethical and religious wisdom, a divine attribute of God, the personification of God's knowledge. So we have that, and then you have as well this word understanding or instruction, umusar, discipline, chastening, or correction, from yasar, to discipline, to chasten or admonish. So to physically discipline somebody is instruction, to be taught by someone else. So you have all areas of knowledge in both practical and divine. So both worldly things and divine things, practical things and impractical things, in moral judgments, in skills, all of this is encapsulated. And then fools, they don't think that they need hekmah or instruction. They don't need wisdom or instruction. They don't want to learn from others. So the one way that you can think of a fool is somebody who refuses to learn either from others or from God. Somebody who is proud. Somebody who is proud, they don't want to learn. They think they know everything. If somebody thinks that they know everything, if they say that they are the smartest or the best, in the book of Proverbs, they would be called fools. They would be called fools. Now, Proverbs 1, chapter 1, verse 8, "Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head," so like a crown, "and pendants for your neck," jewelry. So the teachings are like a crown for you. So listening to your parents is very good. Children or teenagers who think that they know more than their parents will end up knowing less than those who wait to listen to their parents. And the parents are people who are most willing to teach us, so being able to listen to their teaching is important. "My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent." So now this is a father apparently speaking to his son. "If sinners entice you, do not consent." So this is the beginning of the father's instruction. "If they say, 'Come with us, let us lie in wait for blood.'" So there were a lot of pirates, essentially they were robbers who would hide and wait, and when people would pass on these empty trails, they would jump them. So they have these trails between cities. The cities are safe, the roads aren't so safe, and so these robbers would hide out in the cities, along the roads where they could see, oh, there's a big army, let's go hide. Oh, there's just one person, let's attack him. "Let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive, and whole like those who go down to the pit." So let's take all that they have, let's beat them up, let's kill them. "We shall find all precious goods, we shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us, we will all have one purse." So wisdom begins with don't look for unrighteous money. Don't go after money that comes from a wicked source. Have nothing to do with it, have nothing to do with violence, have nothing to do with sinners. Verse 15, "My son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood." So they are going after blood and evil. So what's going to happen to them? "For in vain," verse 17, "is a net spread in the sight of any bird, but these men lie in wait for their own blood." So birds see a net and they'll know not to fly in it. You have to put the net out when nobody can see. So if these robbers are telling you, "Hey, join with us, help us rob other people," what they are saying is, we are going to rob you. Eventually, you are going to die by the sword. Eventually, you are going to be punished. So this is a net that you should be able to see and identify. What is that? Join with us so that we can do violence. Join with us so that we can rob. Join with us so that we can be men who do not value life. "They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors." So it takes away their life, often physically. So if you say, "Hey, I have an idea, let's start an army and go around and attack this country and this country and this country." Even if you think about some of the most powerful armies in their day in history, like the army of the Nazis. They said, "Oh, we have this great army, let's attack everyone. Then we will become rich and they will become poor." And what happens? They are poor. They are the ones who get attacked. They are the ones who die eventually because they could not stop. They just kept going and going and going, and they ended up facing defeat. Even when they have this great army, this great power, when you have a lot of wars for no reason, you will end up dying by the sword. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. Now, there's also a spiritual meaning of this. So you lose your life because you don't value the lives of others. If you, for example, have slaves and you live richly your whole life, but you do not value life. You do not value life. And so this way that you treat these other people will affect the way that you think of others, will affect the way that others think of you. You will have devalued your own life. You will have lost your own life. In addition to the wickedness that you have done, wickedness will also come upon you. Frederick Douglass, a great writer who was enslaved and he got free. And he writes about how there was this woman who was the kindest woman that he had ever met. And then her husband decided to surprise her with a slave as a present. And she started by being kind to this slave, as kind as you can be to somebody that you are holding against their will. But the husband said, no, you can't treat the slave nicely. You have to punish them. You have to go after them. And so this woman who was so kind becomes wicked not only to the slave, but to everyone. So we see this idea that if you practice evil toward others, this evil will get into your heart. And if you pursue violence or unjust gains, you will pay the price either in this world or the next. Now, verse 20 of Proverbs 1. Wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the markets, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gate, she speaks. So wisdom is like a woman who is going around trying to make herself heard. Now, what does she say? Wisdom says, how long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? Let's see. Foolish people, how long do you want to be foolish? That's how they say it in the Good News Translation. How long will scoffers delight in scoffing? So how long will you delight in making fun of what is true? How long will scoffers delight in scoffing and fools hate knowledge? If you turn at my reproof, at my correction, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. So all of you, if you're willing to seek wisdom, you who are not in wisdom, if you're willing to seek wisdom, wisdom will be given to you. If you go and ask people to teach you, if you go and humble yourself and tell people, show me what I must do, then they will teach you and you will learn. Verse 24, because I have called and you refused to listen, have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded, because you have ignored my counsel and would have none of my reproof. Yet these people, the scoffers, the fools, and the simple, they refuse to see outside of themselves that others can know more than them. For instance, in my life, I have a degree in business, an MBA, a master's in business administration. I have taken classes in accounting, but I would be foolish to think that I know more about accounting than others. It would be much better for me to call someone who is an accountant and say, hey, I know I've studied accounting, but you're a professional accountant. What do you think of this? I have some experience in light construction, but I would be foolish if I say I don't need engineers, so I am not going to seek out advice from engineers and contractors on building projects. I don't know very much at all about laws, so I go out and I seek a lawyer. I don't know very much about air conditions. I don't know a lot about electrical work. I don't know a lot about medical. So I go and seek an HVAC or an electrician or a doctor to say, I know more about medicine than the experts. To say, I know more about anything than others is foolishness, is scoffing, is simple-minded. There is actually a modern phrase for it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger. The Dunning-Kruger Effect is a type of cognitive bias in which people believe that they are smarter and more capable than they are. Low ability people do not possess the skills needed to recognize their own incompetence. The Dunning-Kruger Effect. So if, for example, you start studying theology, that's something that I've studied, I say, well, I know a lot about theology. And then as I'm learning more about theology, I start saying, wow, I really don't know that much about theology. And then I start learning a lot about theology. Or math. Oh, I know a lot about math. I can add any single digit numbers. And so you say, I know everything about math. But then you start studying math. And there's division and there's calculus and there's abstract algebra and there's other things that I don't even know beyond that. And so then you start saying, wow, I really don't know anything. And then you study 10 years and then you start saying, okay, now I know something. Now I know something. You have this path. So that's what they're describing here in the book of Proverbs. Don't think that you know everything. Seek out people who can teach you. That's what we're starting with. Your parents and others. Because you have ignored my counsel and would have none of my reproof. Verse 26, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. So you don't know what's going to happen because you don't know what's going on. So you are going to try and fix your car yourself, and it's going to be worse, and it's going to break down, and I'm going to laugh at you. This is what wisdom is going to say. Wisdom will laugh at you because you didn't seek the help of a mechanic or somebody else who knew more than you did. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. Then they will seek me diligently, but will not find me. So there they are, 100 miles away from their house. Their car is broken down. They thought they fixed it, but they didn't. Now there's no mechanic. There's no wisdom to be found. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel, and despised all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way, and have their fill of their own devices. So just as the first part where we see the wicked people who are planning ambush and killing others and being robbed will eventually be killed and robbed themselves. Now it says people who avoid wisdom likewise will end up without wisdom. The people who are avoiding wisdom will end up in their own trap. The things that they think that they are doing will end up hurting them. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel, and despised all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way, and have their fill of their own devices. So we hear about, you shall know a tree by its fruits. This is in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15 through 20. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure, and will be at ease without dread of disaster. but whoever listens to me will dwell secure, will be at ease without dread of disaster. Proverbs 2. So now this is either a father speaking or wisdom claiming to be our mother. I'm not sure because it says my son. So my son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding, yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. So if you think that what you have learned is important and you keep seeking and working for wisdom as you might for treasure, not for something that passes, but for something that stays with us, this will be very important. So as we said before, chapters 1 through chapter 9 are all about you should seek wisdom. Then the next parts, chapter 10 through chapter 31, are about what that wisdom is. So a full third of the book of Proverbs is dedicated to the idea that first you must realize that you need wisdom. You must realize that you do not have all wisdom, that there still are things that you can know. In Greek philosophy, there is Socrates, whose great aphorism is, I know nothing. Or the only thing I know is that I know nothing. I know that I can keep learning. And so we see across cultures, we see this idea that the first thing you must do is get over your bias to think you know everything so that you can seek help. Children have trouble with this. Teenagers have trouble with this. Adults have trouble with this. Employees have trouble with this. Managers have trouble with this. Owners have trouble with this. You'll see people who are very smart in one area, and they will say, oh, I must be smart in every area. I am a physicist, therefore I know philosophy. I am a philosopher, therefore I know medicine. I am a mathematician, therefore I know poetry. You know, whatever the case may be. I don't know if any mathematician has ever said that. But anyway, there are these ideas that we know, that getting over our bias, being humble, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. What does that mean? God knows more than I do. God is bigger than I am. And so if we're able to start there, then we're able to learn something. If you seek it like silver, verse 4, and search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. Verse 6, for the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. So where is the ultimate source of wisdom? From the Lord. From the Lord. So there is practical knowledge and practical wisdom, but then there is also divine wisdom. And so the ultimate source is from the Lord. Now, for instance, if you were to talk to somebody about a famous movie series, say Star Wars, and someone were able to name every single person and every single object in Star Wars, and then you ask them, is Star Wars real? And they say yes. And you say, no, it's not. You know more about Star Wars than they do. In the same way, if we know everything of earthly knowledge, but do not know that God exists, then we know less than the small child who knows very little, but knows that God exists. Verse 7, he stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of his saints. So God protects us if we are his. And he might not protect us in this life, but at least in the next life. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. So you'll have understanding. Why? Because you know the Lord. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. So if you know equity, if you know that God is your judge, and so then you must be humble toward others, and you must judge others with fairness, this is a good thing. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech. So you'll stay away from those who are wicked, those who talk about perverted things. I'm curious what that word is. This Psalm, Proverbs 2:12. In the Good News translation, it says the wrong thing, people who stir up trouble by what they say, men whose ways are perverse. Let's see the Hebrew. So it says, from the man who speaks, medabber tahpukot, perverse things, tahpukot. From Hafak, a perversity or fraud. Something that is overturned, something that is upside down. So people who speak about things that are upside down. Interesting. So perverted, but meaning perverted as in flipped upside down. So what's important is not important, and what's not important is important. Verse 13, who forsake the paths of righteousness to walk in the ways of darkness. So God will protect you from these people. He will tell you not to go after those people. Who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil. Men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. So you will be delivered. So men who are devious and who are trying to trick you, you will, by seeking God, you will turn away from these other people because you won't put your trust in people. Rather, you'll put your trust in God. Now it talks about a woman. So you will be delivered from the forbidden woman or strange woman. Here they say immoral woman, from the adulteress or foreign woman, or faithless woman, I guess, with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forsakes the covenant of her God. So a woman who leaves her husband, a woman who turns from God and goes to prostituting herself. This is a very big temptation across human history for men to go after prostitutes. And what they find is that in going after these women, they are unable to see people as people. They are unable to have normal human relationships because of their thought of seeing people as a transaction or people as an object. And so these women who are trying to use you as an object and use their money, their body as an object to get money, they are turning you so that you also start to see everyone as an object. For her house sinks down to death and her paths to the departed. So her way leads to destruction. There is no happiness down the path of prostitution. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. And people get trapped in just pursuing worldly pleasures. Verse 20, so you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. How? By staying with God and by pursuing wisdom and by listening to your parents, to seeking out the wisdom of those that you can. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. And we have to we see this as something spiritual, that in spiritually and in the next life, the upright are the ones who are persevered and who persevere and endure forever. The wicked are the ones who are punished. But then we also see it as something, this is what we should strive for. Those who are wicked, we should not let them remain. Those who are wicked, we should seek to overthrow and put in righteous rulers and righteous rules, righteous laws. So that concludes Proverbs chapter 2. I'm excited to be reading through Proverbs with all of you. Now we're going to be looking at, and yesterday I forgot this too, jokes. Everybody's favorite time, joke time. Honesty may be the best policy, but it's important to remember that apparently by elimination, dishonesty is the second best policy. So if you have to choose between honesty or dishonesty as the two options, dishonesty is both the worst as well as the second. Rodney Dangerfield says, I looked up my family tree and found out I was the sap. Sap meaning a sucker or somebody who's easily fooled. Keep the dream alive. Don't set an alarm in the morning. I can't believe my therapist said I have a preoccupation with vengeance. I'll show her. I was wondering why the baseball kept getting bigger and bigger, and then it hit me. The person who invented knock-knock jokes should get a Nobel Prize. Huh. I don't know. Not the best jokes in the world, not the worst. So now, yesterday we started reading the non-canonical. They're not in the canon. They're not in the rule. They're not in the law. They're not in the list. So you have a list is called a canon or a rule. And it's these are psalms that come to us from, originally we had them in Syriac, and then later, very recently, they were also in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Hebrew, but they're not preserved in the Septuagint except for Psalm 151. But so there's 160 psalms. There's 10 psalms that are not in the canonical 150. So here I will share with you Psalm 155. We'll see how many of these we can get to today. They're interesting because they just show us they're old. They're at least 200 years before Christ, written in Hebrew. But let's, but they're not part of the inspired canon. A prayer of thanksgiving. When the people obtained permission from Cyrus to return home. So this happened in the Bible about the year 538 BC in Ezra chapter 1. It was the first year of the rule of Cyrus, the Persian king. He was king of Persia. The Lord inspired him to send a message all through his kingdom. It happened so that when what the Lord had spoken through Jeremiah would come true. So the idea that to send everybody home. So they were in exile and now they're returning, and then eventually they'll get to build their temple. So this is a very happy event. O Lord, I have cried to you, hear me. So what was I praying for? To be able to return. I have lifted up my hands to your holy dwelling place. Incline your ear to me. Grant me my request. Do not withhold my prayer from me. So answer my prayer. Build up my soul and do not destroy it, and do not lay it bare before the wicked. Build me up rather than letting me fall before the wicked. Those who reward evil things, turn you away from me, O judge of truth. Those who reward evil things, turn you away from me, O judge of truth. So I'm not with the wicked and those who reward the wicked. O Lord, do not judge me according to my sins, because no flesh is innocent before you. So don't judge me. Build me up, protect me from the wicked, don't judge me. Make your Torah, or your law, plain to me, O Lord, and teach me your judgments. Many will hear of your works, and the nations will praise your honor. Remember me, and do not forget me, and do not let me into things that are too difficult for me. Cause the sins of my youth to pass from me, and remember my chastisement against me no longer. Cleanse me, O Lord, from the evil leprosy, and do not let it come against me any longer. The evil leprosy of sin. Dry up its roots from within me, and do not let its leaves sprout in me. So sin is like a tree. There's a root. If you dry it up and shrivel, it dies, rather than letting it leaf out and come alive, and my life be full of sin. You are great, O Lord, therefore my request will be fulfilled in you. To whom will I complain that he may give to you? What help can be found in the strength of men? So I can't complain to anyone because nobody can do anything. The only person that can do is you. From you, O Lord, is my confidence. I cried to the Lord, and he heard me, and healed the breaking of my heart. I slumbered and slept. I dreamed and was helped, and the Lord sustained me. They sorely pained my heart. So I was confident to you even in my sleep that you would hear me and that you would heal my breaking heart. They sorely pained my heart, the wicked. I will return thanks because the Lord delivered me from the wicked. Now will I rejoice in their shame, the shame of the wicked. I have hoped in you, and I will not be ashamed. May you be given honor forever, even forever and ever. Deliver Israel, your elect, and those of the house of Jacob, your proved one. So Jacob and Israel, two names for the same person, meaning the entire people, the descendants of Jacob. Now, so this is a prayer for help, and according to the title, they've been allowed to return to their people. So there should be a praise of thanksgiving because God has heard their prayer, but there still seem to be saying, answer my prayer. So that the continued idea of. So now here, Psalm 156, translated exclusively from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Significant gaps occur in these manuscripts, and some words have been selectively added. Ooh. So you have Psalm 151, which is in Greek, Hebrew, and Syriac. You have 152 through 155, which is in Syriac and Hebrew. And then you have 156 through 160, which are exclusively in the Hebrew. So we didn't know about them until the Dead Sea Scrolls, like 50 years ago. Let me see when. The Qumran Cave Scrolls, discovered 1946. Oh, wow, longer than 50 years. 75 years. So nobody knew about these until 75 years ago. A plea for deliverance. A worm does not thank you, nor does a maggot recount your loving kindness. So I guess this is when you die, you're eaten up by worms and maggots, and they won't praise you, Lord, so you should leave me alive. Only the living thank you. Yeah, so that's what they were going for. Verse 2, all they whose feet stumble do thank you. So even sinners, at least I stumble sometimes, but I'm still thanking you. I'm still trying. When you make your loving kindness known to them and cause them to understand your righteousness. So the idea is they thank you when you help them. So the people who fall, they thank you when you save them. For the soul of all the living is in your hand, and you have given breath to all flesh. So we go back to Genesis. God he makes Adam out of dust and then breathes into his nostrils, and Adam comes to life. O Lord, do to us according to your goodness, according to the greatness of your mercies, and accordance to the greatness of your righteous deeds. The Lord listens to the voice of all who love him, and he does not permit his loving kindness to depart from them. The Lord listens to the voice of all who love his name, and he does not permit his loving kindness to depart from them. So God stays loving us when we love his name. Blessed be the Lord who does righteous deeds, who crowns his set-apart ones with loving kindness and mercies. Paul talks about how we will be crowned. Second Timothy 4:8, from now on the crowns of righteousness is laid before you. First Thessalonians, possibly. First Corinthians 9:24. Let's see, what's this one? The imperishable crown. Thessalonians, the crown of rejoicing. 2 Timothy 4:8, the crown of righteousness. 1 Peter 5:4, the crown of glory. Revelations 2:10, the crown of life. So we hear about crowns there as well. My soul shouts to praise your name, to praise your mercies with jubilation, to announce your faithfulness, for there is no limit to your praises. So I keep singing and shouting your praise. I belonged to death because of my sins, and my iniquities had sold me to Sheol. So because of my sins, I deserved death, and I am sold into slavery in the pit. So we see Joseph, the son of Jacob, sold into slavery, and they first put him into a pit. If anyone ever has to make a prison for some reason, a very easy way to make a prison is to dig a pit or find a hole that you can only get in and out of with a rope, and then don't put the rope there and the person can't get out. So this idea of the pit as a place to hold slaves or to hold prisoners, because of my sins, I've been sold into this. But you saved me, O Lord, according to the greatness of your mercies and according to the greatness of your righteous deeds. So this idea that God will pick me up from the pit of my sins of death. So this relationship between sin and death. Through sin, death entered the world. Romans chapter 5, verse 12. And 1 Corinthians 15:21. So what we're seeing is that these documents are actually pretty close to some Christian theology. So that's interesting. To be honest, I have never read these Psalms before, so these are new to me as they are to you. Psalm 56, verse 10, I have indeed loved your name and have taken refuge in your shadow. My heart is strengthened when I remember your power and I rely on your mercies. So the name, the shadow as a refuge, the strength for my heart, the power, mercies that I can rely on. Forgive my sins, O Lord, and purify me of my iniquity. Similar to Psalm 51. Grant me a spirit of faithfulness and knowledge. Let me not be dishonored in ruin. Do not allow the wicked one or an unclean spirit to overtake me, and do not allow pain or the evil inclination to possess my bones. So protect me from being possessed by the devil. For you, O Lord, are my praise, and I hope in you every day. So in Jesus' time, they talk a lot about exorcisms and possessed people. Here in this psalm, we hear about the possessed as well. These psalms are dated, let me see, somewhere between 300 years before Christ to 100 years, or 400 years before Christ to 300 years after Christ. They're not sure when they were written. 700-year span. For you, O Lord, are my praise, and I hope in you every day. My brethren rejoice with me, and the house of my father is astounded by your graciousness. So because you have saved me, all of my brothers and my father are rejoicing with you. I will always rejoice in you. I think we will stop there. That's the end of 156. So we'll start with 157, and hopefully we'll be able to finish the other 4 psalms, non-canonical psalms. God bless all of you.